Hi guys, it's Mrs. Glenn. If you weren't able to attend my 405 Zooms this week, I thought I would record it and you'll still be able to get the benefit from understanding it a little bit better and then being able to submit your 405 project. Just so you know, the 405 assignment is on the 10th page, that's 1010, 10th page of the lesson. The lesson is the first 405 link, and where you upload it is the second 405 link on week 3. So you have to do the lesson for 405, go all the way through, take notes, and then on the 10th page you can download the Word document that you'll be able to answer the questions in. So I'm going to show you how to create a graph also in this project, and this is how you would create the graph on your own 405 project as well. So let's get started. So in the Zoom, I asked to everybody that was in attendance, would you rather have a penny that doubles in value each day for 30 days and then stops increasing in value? Or would you rather be given today $1 million? So think about that for a second and decide in your head, would you pick A, a penny every day that doubles for 30 days, or B, $1 million handed to you right now? So I hope you guys have a choice in your mind, and we're going to go over which one is a better option. So when is a penny worth more than $1 million? So to find that, you would have to figure out after 30 days how much would that amount be. So as you do that, we have to convert that penny to 0.01. So 1 penny moved as a decimal would be 0.01. And then the word double, doubles every day, has a numeric value of 2. So that's why the base inside the parentheses is a 2. So how it increases each day, or how it increases over the amount of time that, whatever the problem is what goes inside the parentheses. So if it doubles, it'll be a 2. If it triples, it'll be a 3, and so on. The number that's in front that's not inside the parentheses, that's the starting amount. So in this situation, you're starting with a penny, and as a decimal, a penny is 0.01. So the other thing we can do with this problem is, because we know that we have to see how much money we'll have in 30 days, we can take that 30 and plug it into X. So X always stands for time, and in this situation we're talking about days, so we're going to plug 30 into X. So there we go on the right hand side, and then we have to do order of operations, which means we have to calculate the exponent first, because PEMDAS is parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication, division, then addition, subtraction. So when we calculate 2 to the 30th power, you get a very large number, which is 1,073,741,824. And then the last part is to multiply it by that penny that was out front. So multiply that number by 0.01. And you're going to get $10,737,418.24. So if you chose the penny option, you didn't fall for the joke, and you actually chose the correct one, because you would get more than 10 times $1 million than if you chose to have $1 million today. So obviously you'd have to wait 30 days to get this amount, but I'd wait 30 days to get almost $11 million. That's not a big deal. Still going to live those 30 days anyway, right? Rather have almost 11 million by the end of it. So exponential functions in this lesson exponentially increase and either doubles, triples, or whatever the amount that's inside the parentheses every single unit of time. So if it's days every day, month every month, hour every hour, whatever that would be. So this is how you would do this entire lesson. Just calculate the exponent first, then multiply it by the front number. All right, so let's take a look at the next problem. So we have Mrs. Glenn shared her first TikTok initially with 2 people. They continued to share, so the number of shares increased as shown by the function 2 times 4 to the x power. So in this problem, all you got to do is plug in each x value, so 0, 1, and 2, into the function 2 times 4 to the x power, and then calculate your answer. So let's do that. I'm going to use purple today. Well, purple doesn't look good on that. I'll use blue. All right, actually we'll use red, because red matches what color we're doing. Nope, if I use red, it won't go in the box. All right, I just had an argument with myself. Okay, so when you plug in 0, you have 2 times 4 to the 0 power. So We have 4 to the 0 power that we have to calculate first. And anything raised to the 0 power always equals 1 because it's the same thing as doing this. So raising something to the 0 power is like dividing it by itself. So 4 to the 0 power turns into a 1. Bring down that 2 that you haven't used yet, and 2 times 1 is 2. So my first answer is going to be 2. And that makes sense because if you look at the previous page that I just talked about, I told you that this number right here is your start, whatever we're starting with. And if you look back up in the scenario, it says that I started with sharing it to 2 people. So your answer for whenever x equals 0 will always be that number that's not in the parentheses. So whatever number that is in front of the parentheses goes there. And I also told you that this number tells you how much that's increasing by each time. So that's quadrupling. Mrs. Glenn can't spell. I'm just going to abbreviate quadrupling. Quadrupling each time. So a shortcut way of doing this problem would just be 2 times 4 equals 8. 8 times 4 equals 32. So that would be actually how you would solve the table. However, I'm going to show you mathematically just in case the numbers aren't easy. Sometimes we'll have decimals and things that you can't just calculate that quickly. So if we did 4 to the first power and then multiplied it by 2, 4 to the first power is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, and that matches the answer I put in there. And then the last would be 4 squared, and that would be plugging in our x value of 2 times the 2 that's in front. So this turns into a 16. 16 times 2, get rid of this little mark here, turns into a 32. And that is what I put for this answer. So you can either do it the shortcut way or you can do it mathematically, but you need to know mathematically how to do it because later on, the answers aren't going to be as easy as making a table, nor do you want to sit and make a table for every single question you have to do an exponential function for. So make sure you know both ways, but a quick way to do it is to do it that way, and then check your work would be mathematically. All right, so now we're talking about Mrs. Adams shared her first TikTok with 4 friends. Each of those friends shared with 3 more. So the number of shares tripled every day. So my starting amount when I wrote x equals 0 is 4. So I'm going to put that 4 in the front where it belongs. And then how does 4 get to 12? Well, that's times 3. And how did 12 get to 36? Well, that's times 3. So that means this must be a 3 to the x power. And that makes sense because it says shared with 3 more people. So every person shared with 3 more people, which means my number is going to triple every time because I'm getting 3 shares for every person. So that's all I have to do is create that function. So look at when x equals 0, and that's 4. And then how is the numbers traveling in the y values? And that's going tripling by times 3 every time. So 4 times 3, 12 times 3, and so on. So that's all you have to do for this one, 4 times 3 to the x power. All right, and then the last one would be Mr. Howle. He shared his first TikTok initially with 10 people who each shared with only 2 each day. So initially 10 people. So initially 10 people. So I put when x equals 0, 10. The front number, 10. And then it says shared with 2 people every day. So my numbers are doubling on this one because I have a 2 that's inside the parentheses. So if I double that, that means it's 20, 40, 80, 160. And that would be how you would calculate each one. Like if, for example, I'm going to do the one when x equals 3. So that's 2 to the 3rd power times the 10 in front. 2 to the 3rd power is 8, and 8 times 10 is 80. So mathematically, you can calculate each one and do the exponent, or you can just do whatever this is inside, which is doubling. So that's times 2. Take that answer 20. 20 times 2 is 40. 40 times 2 is 80, and 80 times 2 is 160. Not that hard, huh? All right, so now we're going to show you how to make a graph going to desmos.com. So hopefully this works with clicking on here. I'm not sure. Oh, nope, it doesn't. So I'm going to click on the screen. All right, so now it's taking us to desmos.com. And like I said before, this is a great resource and it's absolutely free. You do not need to create an account, nor do you need to sign in. And you can actually download the app on your phone and do all of this from your phone as well, or an iPad or a tablet or whatever. So I've already put in all of my values, and actually I ended up changing this earlier. So now I need to change these. There we go. So I put all of my values in beforehand, and you can do this as well. So when you make a graph, all you got to do is type in your function on the screen here. You can see that you're typing in 2 times 4 to the x power, and 3 to the x power times 4, 2 to the x power times 10, and so on. You can also create labels for any points that you want to point out as you're showing on your graph. If you go over here to the little share button in the top corner, you can share the URL or the link on your Word document, or you can also take a screenshot of the graph itself and put that in your Word document. So this is a great resource to use for your science class, for any math class you take where you have to create a graph. It's all free and it's available to you on any device. So you can see here, mine is the red line, and I start out with 2 shares. Miss Adams started out with 4, and Mr. Howle started out with 10. So if you were to look at this, you would think Mr. Howle is going to win. However, if you zoom out a little bit, you'll notice, and I don't know if I'll be able to do this up here. This is going to be, there we go. Now it's showing. Who is in the lead? I didn't mean to make you all dizzy. There we go. Let me move it up. All right, so you can see at the very top, Mrs. Glenn, after 3 days, I have more shares than Miss Adams and more shares than Mr. Howle. And if you went to day 10, you would see that I would even be further far ahead than Miss Adams. And that's just because an exponential function exponentially increases every single time you put another x value in there. So this is a great resource to use to immediately see an answer and to visualize something on a graph. So let's go back to, all right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint and let me continue on here. So you can see that we had initially my line, the red line on the bottom was the lowest line, and that's just our y-intercept, that's where I started. But you can see as we went to day 3, I was already in the lead, and day 10 even further. So if you look over here on the right, that was just a snippet of what we did on Desmos on the website. So you can see that after day 3, I already have 128 shares. Miss Adams has somewhere between, I don't know, 118 shares, and Mr. Howle has about 80. So exponential functions exponentially increase, and this is the visual for it. So now we're going to talk about how exponential functions actually translate either left, right, up, or down, or compress or stretch. So on this page, and the take attendance part was for my Zoom, so disregard that. But on this page, I'm going to talk about where do exponential functions start and how can they transform and translate along a coordinate plane. So anytime you start with an original graph before you've translated it in any way, it's called the parent function. So this first one is the parent function, which means there's nothing on this function except for what's inside the parentheses raised to the x power. For exponential functions, that's what we would have. So you could have any number inside that parentheses as long as there's no number in the front, there's no number at the end, and there's no number with the exponent, then it is called the parent function. So now when you look at the second line, we see that we have a +2 on the outside. So if it's on the outside, that means it's actually going up 2, because if it's on the outside, it goes up or down. And in class, I've told you, if you're inside your house, you can't go flying up, you'd hit the ceiling, and you can't go down because you'd hit the ground or your floor. But if you're outside, you could fly up in the air, or you could go down into the ground. So when it's outside the parentheses and exponent, then it would be up or down. And if it's plus, it goes up. If it's negative, it goes down. So for the third line, you'll see that we have a -1 next to the x. So that's inside our exponent, which means if it's inside, you can only go left or right. So I gave you the little acronym in class called La Senor to remember it. So that means left add and subtract right. So if it is a subtract, that means we're going to go to the right by 1. So subtract right, so I see a subtraction sign, and then whatever the number is how many it's going to the right. And then for the next line, I see that we have a 2 in the front here, and that's going to make our answer either stretch or compress. So if the number is greater than 1, it's going to stretch it, and 2 is greater than 1, so that's stretching by a factor of 2. And then the next line, you'll see that it's less than 1. We have a 1/2. So a lot of you guys on the test before we left for spring break put down that it would be compressed by a factor of 1/2. And you had the right word, but you had the wrong factor. So it's actually compressed by a factor of 2. So by 2 times. And the reason why is you take a look at the denominator, and that denominator is a 2. So that means it's going to make everything twice as small as it originally was. So if, for example, somebody was to smash a sandwich to make a Cuban sandwich, the sandwich originally had its original, thickness, and then as you smashed it in the sandwich maker, it is twice as small as it was originally when you get done. So that's what that 2 represents. So if it was a 1/3, it would be compressed by 3 times. If it was 1/4, it would be compressed by 4 times, and so on. And then the last one just has 3 different transformations in one, so I always like to do it from left to right. So that 4 means it's going to be stretched by 4. That 3 means it's going to go to the left 3. And the 5 means it's going to go down. I'm going to use the arrow by 5 because I'm running out of room there. And that is all we did for 405. So if you've watched this entire video and taken notes, I'd recommend going to your 405 lesson, downloading that Word document, and completing your project. Remember, our weekly assignments are due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Good luck, guys.